welcome to the virtual lesson for lesson number 2, talking about technology and map making. And we're going to have a test at the end of the week over all of chapter 1. So we'll jump right into lesson number 2. And this weekend I did a lot of contracting work and doing some building, doing some electrical work. And so when I start off on a job, I've got to know what type of job it is. That way I can know what type of tools to have. So depending on the job, you have all different sorts of tools that you can use. If you're doing some plumbing, you have different pipe wrenches and different things to go along with it, depending on even the type of plumbing. If you're doing electrical work, you have different tools that you use. If you want to pound in a nail, you use a hammer. If you want to make an omelet, you want to make some scrambled eggs, you're going to use a bowl, you're going to use some type of whisk, you're going to use a frying pan. So there's different types of tools depending on the job. And just like tools, there's different types of maps depending on the type of use that you're going to have for it. I have this particular map as the background on my computer, and I have for years. I happen to just appreciate this picture a lot, but this is a map of the internet. So it's not a geographical, geospatial. This is just an informational type of map. I don't know what use it's for. I just think it's a really cool looking map, so I've had it as my desktop background, on my laptop background, all different things. So today we're going to talk about general use maps. There's way more than this. This is just the 10 that I brought out that we can talk about, that you'll be somewhat familiar with. You've probably seen these in social studies and a few other different areas. But these are just some general use maps that I want you to be familiar with. The first is the road map. We've looked a little bit at this already in class, so you should be familiar, at least vaguely. This is a road map of the Raleigh-Durham, North Carolina area here. But a road map, like it says, primarily displays roads and transport links. And so geographical features are not really a big part of it. So this is a type of navigational map, and it will include like political boundaries, different labels and stuff like that. So we'll look at political maps next, so you kind of get what that's talking about. But really the idea is that it shows roads, different types of roads. It uses different color lines or different types of lines to represent different types of roads. Sometimes there'll be other points of interest, like businesses or certain types of buildings, or tourism sites, parks, recreational facilities, hotels, restaurants, airports, train stations. And then it can even have like non-automotive transit routes, like train lines, like we've seen already, but not always. But this is a road map or street map, different names for it, but you get the idea from the name. The next type of map is a political map, like I mentioned. This is actually a political map of Michigan, where I'm from. So a political map shows boundaries, either between countries, which you can see here. If you look, this is the boundary between the U.S. and Canada here, coming down through Lake Superior, and then along the border, and then along Lake Huron, the St. Clair River, Lake St. Clair, Detroit River, and then through Lake Erie. That's the boundary between country. But then there's boundaries between states you can see here. And then if you look at Michigan, it uses actually different colors and lines to indicate the boundaries between the different counties in Michigan. And so it'll use different types of lines, solid or dashed lines. And this one, like I said, uses different colors. But the idea is just more political boundaries. The next type is a relief map. This is what's known as shaded relief, or hill shading, and it shows kind of the shape of the terrain and in a pretty realistic fashion here. So it kind of looks almost three-dimensional, and the idea is that it's illuminated from a light source. And so the shadows kind of fall away from that light source. And if you look at like these shadows here in the mountains, you get the idea that the light source is coming from the northwest, so like the upper left-hand corner, and then shining down from there onto the map. It's not realistic lighting, but it's the best for our eyes. And then when they use different types, it kind of gives like different illusions and perception. And so to avoid that, they usually just use upper left hand northwest there. The next type is a physical map, and this uses lines and shading and color to indicate physical features like mountains, lakes, streams. So if you see here, you've got the Rocky Mountains, and they've used color and shading to kind of show that. And then as you move away, you got the Midwest there, you got Great Plains over here, and then the blue here is obviously the Great Lakes. And then the coastal plains, Appalachian or Appalachian, depending on where you're from. So it uses all these different colors to show the physical features. Then there's what's called a thematic map. And this is specifically designed to show a particular theme that is connected with a specific geographic area. So this is a thematic map of the United States. And the information it's using here is actually soil moisture regimes of the contiguous lower 48 states here. But it can show things like temperature variation, rainfall distribution, population density, all kinds of different things. So you see these a lot in different textbooks and things like that. Then there's a nautical chart, and this is a graphic representation of a sea area and coastal regions. So this one is the Gulf of Maine, and if you look, it shows depths of water, it can show heights of land, some natural features of the seabed and details of the coastline. They can show navigational hazards. It can show natural and human-made aids for navigation. So it may show like a lighthouse. It can show information on tides and currents, and even different details of the Earth's magnetic field. It can show human-made structures like harbors and buildings and bridges. But the point is that it helps ships and things like that as they are navigating through the sea. Then there's an aeronautical chart, and this just looks like a whole mess of information. So unless you're flying a plane, you're not really gonna get what's going on here. But this is designed to assist in navigation of aircraft, just like nautical charts do for watercraft, or a road map does for automobiles. So through this, pilots are able to determine their position. They're able to determine a safe altitude or the best route to a destination, navigation aids along the way, and alternative landing areas in case of an emergency. Just a lot of useful information. There's radio frequencies on there, airspace boundaries, and so these are available for really anywhere, any land mass on Earth, and even for like transoceanic travel. So we may not understand all of the charts or all of the symbols on the chart, and all the different numbers and things like that, but if you were a pilot, you would be trained to understand all of these. Then there is a star chart, and this is actually a pretty old, I think 17th century star chart, but these are just maps of the night sky. And so astronomers will divide them into grids, so you can see they've got the lines here coming, and kind of you can see which constellations are in which area here, so that we can see them more easily. And that's what they're used to identify and locate constellations and astronomical objects and nebulae and galaxies and things like that. But they were used for human navigation. In fact, even way back in ancient history, when mankind first started taking to the seas and traveling, even overland, they used the stars to navigate, and so they started making star charts in order to help people figure out where they were. Then there is a world map, and this shows all or most of Earth's surface, and we kind of looked at some of these last week. And so we know that when you use a world map, you have to deal with the issues of projection and distortion. If you remember, we talked about how Greenland, like on this map here, actually looks bigger than South America or Africa, when in reality it's like 1/8 the size of South America. So you can see there's some obvious distortion. And we know this is actually from a cylindrical projection of Earth. So we'll look at some different ways that they're trying to figure those out as we continue on with lesson 2. And then another thing that I want you to understand is an atlas. An atlas is just a collection of maps. So when we talk about that, there's road atlases, and it's just different maps of different road maps put together, and different types of atlases that you can get a hold of. But all that is just a collection of maps. So I hope you guys you can watch these videos more than once if there's too much information, or if I went too fast for you to get it all. But that's it for general use maps.